Bashir is telling boring stories to a dinner companion while O'Brien sits nearby. She seems oddly rapt, meaning she either switched off her ears or the whole thing was arranged by plain simple Garak to keep his pet happy. That's enough of that though, as Sisko needs help on a landing pad. A mega shuttle took a jaunt to the other side of the wormhole and had some undefined issues which left it with minimal power. He says Dax and a certain Ensign Paulie are trapped inside. The mention of a previously unknown character rarely a good sign for the person attached to the name. Odd thing though, Bashir's detecting 3 people in there, not 2. We can't get the door open to check, and Kira's suggestion of pooping through it will take too long. O'Brien's got the goods though, a battery on his little tool cart providing enough juice to make the door loose. In a surprising turn of events, the unknown ensign is still alive. Even more surprising is that the unexpected third passenger is known to O'Brien from his time on the Enterprise. Her name's VASH, and Dax says she's been in the Gamma Quadrant for 2 years. That's from before the wormhole was discovered, and when asked, VASH only says that she was dropped off by a friend, which would explain the appearance of another visitor known to the Enterprise, as Pool Q has just appeared here on Deep Space Nine as well. A check over from Bashir shows VASH is in excellent health, certainly enough for a little flirting anyway. And checks are happening in Ops too, the start of a search into VASH's background. She said she was in the Gamma Quadrant for 2 years but hasn't shared how she got there, and was of the opinion that she wouldn't be coming back. All we know is that she is, or at least was, an archaeologist. Not much, but it probably means there'll be official records somewhere. She might still dabble from the looks of things. She has some items to place in safekeeping, odds and sods picked up from her journey in the Gamma Quadrant perhaps, with the last being a flashy crystal of some sort. We'll assume it's important, as it's the only item they talk about in detail or give a close-up on, so let's file that data away for later. Or perhaps they're red herrings, as she'll only be here till tomorrow, plans already made for leaving. Sisko arrives to hear the last part and tells her some boffins back home are going to be upset to learn she's already made plans. They're clamouring to know more about Gamma Quadrant life, and she's been living there for 2 years, making her the closest we have to an expert. He takes a jab at asking her how she got there too, something she hasn't told anybody else when they asked. Perhaps her resistance to being debriefed is some bad blood back home. One of the boffins Sisko mentioned disapproved of VASH's methods back in the day, which is to say that he had her suspended from the archaeology club because she was selling shit on the side. She openly admits as much, saying she values profit over research, but seems to agree with Sisko when he pushes again for her to return to Earth. Maybe she wants to rub that boffin's nose in it, or maybe she's just saying it to get rid of Sisko. O'Brien's been trying to figure out what went wrong on the mega shuttle. We know it lost power, but he can't find a reason why. He leaves it to have a chat with Sisko about VASH, where we learn that she and Johnny Picard were close friends, which is presumably his way of saying that they did squelchy-squirty cum times. The gossip is cut short by a power loss across the whole station, albeit a brief one. We don't know why it happened, but Dax asks if there was a particular type of science wibbly in the system. O'Brien finds it, and Dax tells us that she guessed because that's what happened on the mega shuttle. Gee, I wonder if that happened after they picked up VASH and the flashy crystal thing that we were very deliberately shown. Maybe it won't matter if she still plans on buggering off tomorrow. O'Brien shows her to some quarters and leaves, though not before giving her a suspicious glance as she enters the room. Maybe it's because he can smell Pool Q's bullshit. He pops into the quarters as VASH is unpacking, something she does not greet warmly. The conversation leaves us with the distinct impression that they were a thing, at least until VASH had enough and left. No small task when the person you're leaving is essentially omnipotent, though this is probably a gain to him, like everything else. And that, perhaps, is what she's tired of. She says she wants her old life back and for him to fuck right off. A chime stops them, Quark arriving with some wine. Pool Q vanishes him and receives a bollocking for it from VASH, so Pool Q departs and Quark is brought back. After a bit of confusion, Quark explains he's here because he's heard VASH is a bit dodgy and might have some stuff she wants shifting. He's willing to organise sales, for a cut of the profits. It's clear she's done this sort of negotiating before, and with a Ferengi as well. She eventually haggles him down to a 22% commission for anything sold at the auction he'll arrange, and off he goes to sort it out. Pool Q's back for only a few seconds when there's another caller. It's Bashir this time, here to invite VASH to dinner. She accepts and agrees to meet him in 20 minutes, though Pool Q has other plans. Disguised as a Bajoran, he tries to convince Bashir that VASH is bad news and he's making a mistake. Bashir responds by telling Pool Q he can go fuck himself, so he just uses his powers to make Bashir go for a nap instead. The end of the exchange is witnessed by O'Brien, who recognises Pool Q and goes off to warn everybody that we've got a massive arsehole on board. Sisko knows who Pool Q is, of course, briefed about him by Starfleet, but Kira's lack of knowledge is a handy reason for a recap that he's basically a god who enjoys acting like an utter dick. O'Brien tells Sisko that VASH might know more, him being aware of their previous story back on the Enterprise. Another power loss during their conversation about Pool Q leads O'Brien to conclude he's the one causing it, so Sisko goes looking for VASH. She's in Quark's and going through her inventory with him. We're again focused on the flashy crystal, with Quark trying, and failing, to swindle her out of it. Sisko interrupts and tells Quark to piss off so he can talk to VASH. He wants to know everything about Pool Q, which is handy as he's right there to explain for himself. Sisko has no patience for his patter and tells him to knock his shit off, including whatever he's doing with the power. Some dickishness towards VASH prompts Sisko to suggest he and Pool Q should continue alone, and he gets what he wants, sort of. Starfleet diplomacy classes prove their worth again, and Sisko gets a bit handsy. Well, that makes it a new game, so Pool Q changes the arena accordingly. A couple of bops to the face is about as much as Sisko is willing to give him for free, with the end result being Pool Q on his arse. That's not a win for Sisko, though. Most of the shit Pool Q does is to get a rise, and now he knows he's got a mark. Some well-to-do guests are arriving, possibly for Quark's auction, and are watched by Odo, at least until the lights go off again anyway. Things are a bit worse this time round, with a hull breach affecting ops. Emergency measures fix things, and we check the whole station over, discovering that the damage was caused by the science wibblies Dax mentioned earlier and had O'Brien look for. A closer examination of the damage has Dax suggesting that we might want to try reasoning with Pool Q. Sisko's starting to get the measure of him though, and thinks that this is all far too uninteresting to be one of his games. If Pool Q had done this, he'd at least have made a hole in the shape of a cock and balls or something. Speak of the devil, he's trying to convince VASH to go gallivanting all over the universe with him some more, and to prove how much fun that would be, he's afflicting her with a variety of ailments. It's a threat, of course, the implication that the universe is a cruel place, and someone with power would be useful, basically a protection racket. And, just in case that doesn't work, he appears in ops while they're getting ready to do a science and find the cause of the power losses. After a bit of mockery and some insulting of O'Brien, he tells them VASH is sullying the Federation and her actions are bad news in general. He could be giving them a hint about the flashy crystal, of course, but it's equally likely that he's trying to alienate her from those around her, just like many abusers do. Those new arrivals are indeed here for Quark's auction, and at least one of them is an arrogant twat. Quark doesn't care as long as the latinum's good, and suggests to VASH that this arrangement could become a regular thing. She goes to grab Gamma Quadrant artifacts, he arranges buyers with more bars than brains. She declines and says she plans to retire comfortably, a suggestion that doesn't convince Quark, not because she's lying, but because he thinks she'll miss the adventure. And adventure is what's happening to the entire station right now. There's a load of shaky going on, but we're still a few minutes away from starting their plan to find the cause of the power drains. In the meantime, Kira's noticed Deep Space Nine is moving. Not rotating like normal, but changing position, and starting up the minimal engines we have doesn't correct it. O'Brien thinks that shutting down power might solve the problem, which is fair logic. If the power drains are causing the science wibblies, then no power means no wibblies. We switch to mood lighting mode and put the station on emergency power so we can still have little luxuries like air and heat, but it's not working. We're still moving, and from the looks of it, we're heading for the wormhole. It's auction time. VASH introduces the first item, a stone statue, and starts giving a brief history of it. Nobody cares, as they're only here to throw money at a rare thing so they can feel special, and Quark sees that she's losing them. He steps in and takes over, 2 vague sentences being all the preamble he thinks they need before he starts taking bids. Up in Ops, we're starting the plan to find the power drain. We know it's not in the docking sections, the outer ring of the station, but are struggling to get more detail. Oh, and we've got about 18 minutes left before we fly into the wormhole, something unlikely to end well for anybody on the station. The auction's in full swing and Quark's having a great time. It's dampened a bit by Pool Q dropping by and letting everybody know that they're all going to die in a few minutes. Quark tells them everything's fine and throws in some booze to keep them here, a little thing like a warning of imminent death being insufficient to stop him from chasing profit. VASH calls Pool Q a twat and believes any current threat is down to him, which, based on his earlier actions, is probably a fair conclusion. Saying that he'd be willing to save her doesn't help to convince her of his innocence, and she turns him down. Two ops once more, where we're still struggling to track down the power drain. Dax realises that even with their plan, power drains are difficult to spot when we've turned off the power. Turning everything back on again will help us find it a lot easier. The slight drawback of their revised plan is that extra power means extra science wibbly, so we'll end up in the wormhole a lot quicker. Still, it's the only idea we've got, so off we go. Things are coming to a head in the auction too, our final item being the flashy crystal thing. Interest in this lot is significantly more intense, much to Quark's delight, and the bids start to climb. The power drain is also climbing and carrying us to the wormhole faster as well. The plan worked though, and we tracked that power drain down to the promenade, so Dax, Kira and Sisko pop over to see what it is. Pool Q's joining in the auction for giggles, perhaps to piss off the guy who was an arsehole to Quark earlier, and massively outbids everyone. If Quark has realised that Pool Q wasn't invited to the auction, then the promise of 1,000,000 bars of latinum has made him not care. And that's our cue for Dax, Kira and Sisko to pop in, find the flashy crystal thing, identify it as the cause of our problem, and teleport it off the station. Quark's distraught due to not having been paid yet, but the flashy crystal seems happy about what just happened and turns into a glowing space jellyfish before scarpering through the wormhole. VASH is going back to Earth. That's what she tells Quark anyway when he suggests that borrowing a few cultural relics from a recently opened dig site could prove extremely profitable for them both. Pool Q's say she's making a mistake too, and that Earth is altogether pedestrian now they've stopped doing fun things like having wars. VASH remains resolute and tells Pool Q to bugger off, though not entirely unkindly this time, and he departs. Once he's gone, VASH asks Quark some more about this dig site he mentioned, and they go off to negotiate terms, while the show remembers that Bashir exists. He's only just awoken from Pool Q's induced nap, and we leave him to catch up on what's happened while he was sleeping until the next adventure. Now, before any of you start in the comments, yes, I know this ties to a couple of Next Generation episodes, and no, I don't remember a damn thing about them. Nor did I stop to re-watch them for context, as expecting viewers to know of events from related but not directly connected media is bullshit for which I have little time. If your story doesn't stand up on its own merit without me having to do homework, then your story is bollocks. Now that we've established my criteria for judging this one, let's get into it. The story itself is bland and entirely forgettable, the only real point of interest arguably being that this is the second time I can think of where Pool Q has been involved with giant space jellyfish. Maybe it's a king. Perhaps the central story being bland and forgettable is because it's not the main point of the episode, only really there as an excuse for watching Pool Q and VASH. And that's very much a mixed bag. The end is of interest because we see Pool Q suggesting that having someone travel with him helped him to appreciate the mundane. It could be bollocks, of course, another attempt to butter up VASH into rejoining him, but it's close enough to his usual motivation of wanting to be entertained that it bears a ring of truth. It also makes an obvious parallel to a different long-running science fiction show, the highly intelligent but very weird alien who chooses curious people to show them interesting things, taking vicarious pleasure from their wonder. And if that insight into Pool Q had been the focus of the episode, perhaps it would have been better received, but unfortunately the bulk is him showing himself to be a complete and utter cunt. Pool Q is known for being an egotistical prankster, of course, but this one shows him in a very negative light indeed. The gaslighting and attempts at manipulation are par for the course, though certainly more sinister when taken in the context of doing it to someone implied as a former partner. He goes further, though, inflicting actual physical abuse on her. When you view the episode as what it is, namely an ex-partner trying to take back control of somebody who left them, it becomes very problematic indeed that such behaviour is not explicitly called out. That they end on amicable, even playful terms only adds to the issue. I took a bit of stick from a vocal minority when I called out Pulque's sexual harassment of Janeway back in the Voyager rewatch, but I stand by those comments. When you associate harmful behaviour with an entertaining fan-favourite character and don't explicitly call out that behaviour, you're linking the two. Whether that was your intention or not is irrelevant. The complaining responses to that episode's commentary only served to confirm this. Half of them said it was obvious to any viewer that his actions were unacceptable, the other half said he did nothing wrong. I can think of no other time that the internet has conspired to do my work for me, and I thank everybody who responded for so effectively destroying each other's arguments. That's enough negativity, so let's try and look at something a bit more fun, shall we? There are a few goofs in this one to call out. The first is a visible cable and what I suspect is a boom arm for a microphone. It's not quite as bad as the time we saw actual crew in shot on an episode of Voyager, but it's still pretty noticeable. The second is in the airlock for the docked mega shuttle. We see both of the doors open simultaneously. That's a very big no-no for an airlock at any time, but particularly unwise when the vehicle docked is malfunctioning. Oh, and Cisco called this a landing pad when it's a docking bay. I presume it was cheaper than making a new set. The third is us breaking into the mega shuttle at all. If the occupants are in danger, why are we wasting time with that instead of just teleporting them out? It can't be interference from the flashy crystal, as we teleport that without any issues while it's going full science wibbly at the end. We need it for the plot, of course, an excuse to have O'Brien in the room so he can recognise VASH, but there's no explanation of the logic in-universe, so it all feels as contrived as it is. Let's finish off with the continuation of a theme, shall we? As Bashir is examining VASH, he says, "You've managed quite well, considering you've been out of contact with civilization for over 2 years." It's another example of the arrogance we saw in the pilot when he considered Bajor to be backwater. Again, it's this idea that anywhere which is yet to be graced by the presence of the Federation is somewhere that needs uplifting. We'll compliment the show once more for calling him out on it. Vash comments that she's seen cultures with histories dating back far further than our own. I'm on record as saying I have time for anything that knocks the Federation down a peg or two, as I think that makes them more relatable. Seeing Bashir's almost instinctive dismissal of anything other be shown for the ignorance that it is pleases me greatly. End of episode.
Are you sure you're ready to give it a go?
I mean, I think so, yeah.
Okay, but are you actually sure this time? The last time you said you were sure, the only thing you did was make the replicator spit out a wheel of cheese.
I didn't hear you complaining when you ate it. Good cheese was that.
All I'm saying is maybe another simulation or two would be wise.
Look, I can do all the simulations in the universe, but eventually I'm gonna have to land this bloody thing. Might as well be now. Besides, I think I broke the shitter, so it's gonna be a matter of some urgency in the near future.
Why are dogs using the shitter?
Don't overthink it, lad. All I'm saying is we should give this a go.
Right. Fine. Let's get it over with.
Which one was the don't crash button again?
What the fucking fuck?
It were a joke. Park your ass and enjoy the ride. Seriously though, is there a don't crash button?
Nope. Stop. I'm calling a halt to this.
Nope, too late now. Here we go. Woof.